have, yes, I'll be able to have access to it afterwards.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, and we'll share the recording. We'll share the recording and the slides afterwards.
Thank you.
Via an e-alert as well. Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. I think most people seem to have arrived now, so I will pass over to Sophie, who will take you through the agenda and then through the slides.
Thanks, Annie. So my name's Sophie Ward. I'm a project officer working on the England Woodland Creation Offer. So if I just run through the agenda for this webinar, for the first half an hour, we're going to be running through kind of the UCO application process and some handy tips for applicants. So what this is stemming from is we have identified some kind of common missing information, and hopefully we're going to be able to provide you all with some tips on how to successfully submit a complete application kind of the first time around. After the presentation, we're going to have a pre-recorded demonstration of the myforest tool, which has been provided for us by the Silver Foundation. So they've kindly kind of produced a pre-recorded demonstration of that. And then after we've shown that video, we're going to have a brief kind of 10 to 15 minute session where you can ask any questions you might have. I've also noted at the bottom, Annie will be monitoring the chat throughout. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, then just note them into the chat and then we can kind of answer them at the end of the session. Okay. So as you're all probably well aware, the England Woodland Creation Offer launched in June 2021, and it was open to landowners, land managers and public bodies to be able to support the creation of new woodland on areas as small as 1 hectare. So far, we have received around 390 applications to date, amounting to a total of around 2,600 hectares of new woodland creation. So I'm sure you can appreciate that. It's proven very popular and we are very proud of the grant itself. However, from those applications, we have identified that around 40% of those that we receive are often returned for missing information. And so the presentation today and also the e-alerts that we've been sending out are kind of aimed at trying to help applicants submit applications kind of successfully the first time round, and so getting through kind of the application process itself a lot quicker than you could be if we're having to return it. So the basic UCO application itself requires the application form Part A. So this is a PDF document which we ask for basic details about yourself, the site and its management. We also have the application form Part B, which is quite a large Excel spreadsheet, but this provides you with the opportunity to provide in-depth information about the land you are planning to plant, the capital items you wish to apply for, and any additional contributions you wish to apply for as well. And alongside the Part A and Part B, we also do require a map to be submitted alongside all UCO applications. The specifications of the map I will run through a bit later on. So it's worth noting, if you are considering making a application to UCO, we recommend that you contact your local woodland creation officer as early as possible, who can help you to develop your woodland creation plan, so the details that you put into your application form Part B, and also guide you towards perhaps applying for the Woodland Creation Planning Grant as a precursor for UCO, and that's for applications over 5 hectares. Details on how to contact your local Woodland Creation Officer are found on our government website, alongside all of our application forms as well. So alongside the Part A and Part B, and also the map, there may also be some additional forms that you may also want to include in your application. So this might be a counter signature continuation page. If there's multiple parties involved in the application, you might require kind of more signatures. We do also have a natural colonisation site assessment form, which we require if your application is to include natural colonisation as part of woodland establishment. Or we do also have the UCO Common Land and Shared Grazing Supplementary Form if the application you are submitting is on common land. So all application forms can be submitted to us via our email, which is uco@forestcommission.gov.uk. However, you can send hard copies of the forms to our national office in Bristol, and details of that address and also our email addresses are again found on our government website, but we will be sharing the materials from this webinar afterwards as well to help you submit your application. From 22nd of March of this year, we are only able to accept version 1.4 or later of the UCO application forms Part A and Part B for new applications. And this was recently announced in a e-alert as well that went out to customers. As we are constantly trying to improve and improve our grant and the process for applicants, this is why the forms have changed to make improvements for both us and for applicants as well. It also includes changes such as the recent increase to our maintenance payments from £200 per hectare to £300 per hectare. So this is why we can only accept kind of the new versions of the application forms. So if older versions of these were to be submitted now, we would have to unfortunately request that they are transferred over to the new versions. Version information can be found on the introduction tab of the application form Part B, and also at the bottom of the application form Part A if you are unsure of what version you are currently working on. So the UCO application form Part B, as I've mentioned, is an Excel spreadsheet, and it does have a capability built into it where all mandatory fields are highlighted in yellow until they are completed. So obviously this is helping the applicant to identify areas where more information is required, and also fields filled in grey and locked for editing don't require input from you. So if you're going through your application form Part B and you're noticing there are quite a lot of yellow boxes, we do require that information to be completed. So if the application is submitted to us and we identify some areas where there's yellow boxes yet to be filled out, unfortunately this will require some further input from yourselves, and we will have to send it back to you for further missing information. So the first tip we have in this webinar today is surrounding kind of the SBI and the CRNs on application forms. So overall, you must be registered on the Rural Payment Service before you can apply to UCO. Once you're registered on the Rural Payment Service, you will receive a Customer Registration Number, or CRN for short, a firm reference number, and a single business identifier, or SBI for short. A SBI is a unique 9-digit number given to a farmer or business that is involved in agricultural activity. This is not the same as a trader SBI. Your SBI or that of your client, if you're an agent, can be found in most correspondence from the RPA, or can also be found by logging onto the Rural Payments portal and looking at the business details section. So you can see here, the SBI must be 9 characters long and the CRN must be 10 characters long. So we will check this when applications are submitted. Unfortunately, failing to provide these key pieces of information on both the Part A and the Part B will require us to send the application back to yourselves to fill out. So your CRN can be located on the Rural Payment Service under the View and Amend Personal Details section when logged onto the Rural Payment Service via your business details. The CRN provided on the Part A and Part B must be for the lead applicant of the scheme and not the agent. If you are unable to locate your SBI or CRN after following these instructions, we can also recommend contacting the Rural Payment Service at their email address or by their phone number, and they should also be able to help you. At the bottom of this slide, I've also put a link to a helpful video supplied by the Rural Payment Service, which can give you a step-by-step guide on where to find your CRN. If you have an agent acting on behalf of the applicant, they can be given permissions to act on behalf of the business on the Rural Payment Service. You can add an individual to your business on rural payments by selecting the Add an Individual link under the People and Permissions service. Again, if this is a bit confusing to yourselves, there is also a link provided at the end of the slide, which is a step-by-step video that's been provided by the Rural Payment Service themselves. It's worth noting that to add an individual to your business on the Rural Payment Service, your permission level must be set to full permissions for business details. The agent must also be registered on the Rural Payment Service, and you'll need their customer reference number. For UCO, it is mandatory that agents are linked to the business if they are to receive non-RDP payments on the behalf of the lead applicant. So we will be checking this if on the agent authority form, the agent is able to receive non-RDP payments. We will be checking that they are linked to the business on rural payments. So tip 2 is also about rural payments itself. So all lead applicants and agents, if authorised to claim grant payments, must be fully verified on the Rural Payment Service to confirm their identity. This must be resolved before we are able to run any eligibility checks on your UCO application form. 1 second. There we go. So under People and Permissions of your business, we will check if there is a more information required notification next to the name of the lead applicant and agent of the scheme. If so, we will ask that this is amended by contacting the Rural Payment Service at the email address or phone number at the bottom of the slide. However, it is also worth checking your My Messages service in the rural payments to see whether anything needs actioning before submitting your application. We found that this can be something as simple as updating a address or even verifying an email address. So it is worth just checking that and making sure that everything is all sorted out before you submit your UCO application. We are only able to proceed the processing of your application once this notification is resolved and has been removed from the name of the lead applicant or agent for the scheme, or if we have been provided with evidence to suggest this amendment is currently being processed. So our third tip is surrounding the agent authority form. So if your UCO application involves an agent acting on behalf of the lead applicant, you must submit a version 4.0 version of the Forest Commission Agent Authority form alongside your application documents. As of January of this year, we cannot accept version 3.0 for new UCO applications or for new agents acting on behalf of an applicant. If you have previously submitted an application to the Forest Commission with the same agent and the same lead applicant, we can use this form that will be stored on file already. So you don't need to submit a new version just because the new version has come out, basically. Both the agent and the applicant/agreement holders must sign this form. You can sign this form in either of the following ways. So you can either sign it electronically using a link which will be sent to you on request by emailing the email address on screen, or you can also use an original handwritten signature, so a wet signature that has been scanned in. If you wish to fill out the form by hand and you do not have the capability to be able to scan the form in, you can also send a hard copy to our national office as well. So tip 4, it is essential that work does not begin on any UCO funded activity until you have a signed grant agreement. Work carried out before you have a signed UCO agreement will unfortunately be ineligible for funding. You should, however, speak to nurseries early about availability of plant supply. The more notice you can give your nursery, the more likely they are to be able to fulfil any order you make later. On the UCO application form Part A, you must also declare that you have done this prior to submitting an application with us. Tip 5 is around existing agreements. So we're applying for UCO on land parcels with 6 months or less left to run on existing agri-environment agreements. We will not issue a UCO agreement until this is expired. So what this means is that you can still submit a UCO application. However, we will identify that there is existing agri-environment agreements on the land, and we will postpone sending out a grant agreement until that date has passed, that they have expired. For environmental stewardship agreements with more than 6 months left to run, we will email you with the option to amend your existing ES agreement subject to tests A and B, as we recently announced in our e-alert. For countryside stewardships with more than 6 months left to run, you must agree with the RPA the removal of the land from the agreement before you submit your UCO application. This can be done by contacting the RPA with details of your SBI and CS agreement number to request the removal of the parcels in your UCO application from the existing agreement. However, it is worth noting that this can result in some reclaims or penalties. So our final tip today is around mapping. So here you can see on screen, although it is a bit blurred just because it's a small application, and they can be found on our government website as well. So the map must show all the land on which the woodland creation works and items will be undertaken, and that should be done clearly. So maps should be clear and easily read. Poor photocopies or poor image quality will unfortunately not be accepted. We also cannot accept any screenshots from internet map browsers such as Google Maps as base maps. So one of the elements that we expect to be on a UCO application map is a coloured boundary line. So this is, as you can see, this blue line around the map is overall application area. So this is the area that we will be mapping on our internal mapping browsers to be able to log your woodland creation scheme. So this should be clear and around the entirety of the woodland creation. We do also expect the location of proposed work and standard cost items to be detailed on the map as well. So what this means is all items that are applied for under the standard cost items tab of the UCO application form Part B should be detailed on the map. So you can see on this one, we do have the locations of some wooden field gates, and also the purple kind of dotted line is detailing the perimeter of post and wire fencing as well. We do also expect any areas of open space to be mapped out in the UCO application map. So this will let us know in correspondence with UCO application Part B why there is kind of internal open space. So on this map, you can see there is integral open space with biodiversity access and deer control. We do also expect the SBI and property/site name to be included on the UCO application map, just so it's easily identifiable which woodland creation scheme it corresponds with. If you are submitting more than one map, so this might be if the entire scheme cannot be kind of detailed on one map itself and you have to provide multiple, we do expect map numbers and the total number of maps to also be detailed. We do also require a 6-figure OS grid reference to be included on the UCO map for the centre of the scheme, so we are able to find it ourselves. So Alongside this, we do have some additional mapping criteria that can be found in our UCO manual on the UCO government page as well. So it goes into a bit more detail in that manual there. Additional maps may also be submitted, which show things such as planting design, watercourses, access, or an open ground map as well. Base maps can be requested from the Forestry Commission through the map request service for use in your application. However, we do also endorse the use of the myforest tool, which I will lead on to now. So unfortunately, Paul and George from the Silver Foundation couldn't join us today, but they have very kindly produced a pre-recorded demonstration of the myforest tool, which can be used to produce UCO compliant maps. So Annie, would you like to start the demonstration? Thank you.
I will share my screen now. Can you let me know if you can see that on the screen?
Yeah, that's come up.
Hello, my name is George Dennison. I'm the myforest manager at Silver Foundation. I'm really sorry, but neither myself nor Paul Orsey, our director of operations, could be with you today. We were both really excited about the idea of giving a live demonstration for creating UCO compliant maps, but it didn't work out this time. Although I'm not there to answer any questions right now, I've put my email in the bottom right there. So please feel free to send me an email with any questions that you have, any clarifications that you need. There's also, I'll show you in a second when I get into the myforest platform itself, there's a help button within that you can send an email via that. You'll still get me responding, but it might be a bit easier for you. So I'm going to give you a 15-minute talk and presentation and demonstration today about creating UCO compliant maps using the myforest platform. So I'm going to give you a quick little run through about who Silver are, what we do, and then what the myforest platform is, and then I'll jump into a live demonstration, old live demonstration of how to actually create those UCO compliant maps. So as a charity, we're based in South Oxfordshire. That's where the head office is, our global headquarters, but our reach is across the United Kingdom. So we've got about 155,000 hectares mapped across the UK of existing woodlands. Obviously, we're really excited about the idea of building to that with more woodlands being planted as well. But I think that's quite a staggering statistic there. I think if you add it up compared to the current privately owned woodlands in the UK, about 6 or 7% of all privately owned woodlands are mapped using myforest, which is incredible. And it just seems to be growing so fast at the moment. So I'm really, really happy about that. And hopefully it'll grow a little bit more today. So a little bit about kind of our background, what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. So I'm sure that you're very aware over the last 20, 30 years, more and more research, more and more papers, more and more news has come out on forests declining, UK importing so much timber that we're now the world's second biggest importer of timber, the negative effects of climate change on forestry and all of the negative effects that that's having on biodiversity as well. The addition of carbon into the market as well means that there's more incentives to plant woodlands. And I'm thrilled that Forestry Commission have pulled together the England Woodland Creation Offer because it shows the intent from government to get more trees in the ground and build up the UK's woodland cover. And there's a whole plethora of reasons behind that, but it's the main motivation driving the myforest platform. Why do we want to do this? Because there's so many environmental, societal, and economical factors behind this that are the driving forces for us. So how we do it, we're always looking to innovate, collaborate, train, and advocate. One of the reasons why I'm with you today is a combination of all of that, really. And this is something that we really consider when we're carrying out any project, developing new tools, and really getting into work with projects. So how we do it. So this is why you're here today, or why I'm here today presenting to you. So I'll be talking and giving you a demonstration of the myforest platform. So it's been running now for about 10 years. It's an online focused GIS system that allows woodland owners to map, add data, and do all of the planning requirements for woodland management. And as a result of a DEFRA elms test and trial that we've been doing over the last 2 years for woodland creation as well. So we're based on a freemium model. I will come on to that in a second because there's quite an important point to make on that. But we've got a whole host of tools that we've developed over time, and all of these will help you map your new woodlands, your woodlands that you've got at the moment, your current woodlands, and then there's a few other tools surrounding that as well, which I don't have time for today, but there's lots of videos and tutorials of how to use them all. Across the UK, we've got over 9,000 users, and as I said, about 155,000 hectares of woodland are mapped. Part of the training, innovating, collaborate, kind of our what again, comes back to how do we create guidance and resources for landowners, land agents, woodland owners like yourselves. And part of this was when we were carrying out our elm test and trial, we created a guidance handbook. It's about 45 pages of using the myforest tool, using the myforest platform to create UCO compliant maps. So these come from the FC regulations and kind of what they expect, what their woodland officers expect, and looking at how you can actually go about creating all of those in myforest. I'm going to touch on premium quickly. So we run on a freemium model. So as a charity, it's a really our public benefit of creating the myforest platform is that we're bringing woodlands into sustainable management. We're creating woodlands sustainably. But as a charity, we do have costs to cover. You can set up an account, you can use the account and carry out most of the functions completely free. We do, however, have premium accounts for, I'll come on to the account types. So there's woodland owner accounts and woodland agent accounts. I imagine most of you will need a woodland owner account. So with that owner account, it's £24 a year. I think that's very reasonable considering you'll be creating an asset that's worth multiple thousands of pounds, hopefully. But as part of the UCO compliance, you will need to use Ordnance Survey mapping backgrounds. And simply because of our licensing agreement with the Ordnance Survey, we will have to charge for that. So importantly, we don't make any profit on the Ordnance Survey mapping backgrounds. As a charity, that's not what we're in the game for. And it's simply we're passing on costs that we incur. Other benefits of having a premium account, you do get access to other tools, more mapping tools and outputs, and then also bespoke outputs. They're more functionality is tailored towards woodland management, but that's something that we're really looking at building on over the coming months and years. I will touch on the difference between a woodland owner account and a woodland agent account quickly. So a woodland owner account is essentially a single site property, meaning if you've got one woodland or you're aiming to create one woodland, then an owner account is perfect. An agent account allows you to create multiple sites, so you can keep all of your data, all of your mapping separate, so it's really easy to move between the different properties or sites that you own. If you're in a single site, if you're looking to plant woodland on your farm, if you're looking to plant woodland on the edge of your estate or where you have a little bit of land already or looking to extend your woodland, you'll only need a woodland owner account. So that's a really important difference. If you need any advice on that, there's plenty of guidance videos that we've created that really go into detail about that. Before I get into the demo, I just wanted to put the URL up for you. I'm sure Sophie or someone from the FC, when they send out all of the information at the end of the webinar, will be able to include this link in there. This is the link for the home website. So what you see from here on out will just be the the myforest platform, and we'll go from there. This is the myforest homepage. From here, you'll be able to register your account. Again, we have videos for all of this. So the difference between the different types of accounts, you only need a woodland owner or woodland agent account. So there's no need to worry about. I'm just going to log in. So I've already created a bit of a demo site for this. So if you have an agent account, this is the view you'll get. If you have a woodland owner account, you won't get this view. So this is the view that you will automatically come to if you're a woodland owner. So as I said, we have a woodland creator tool, a woodland manager tool, a deer manager tool, the directory, and the woodland star rating. So over the next 2 months, 3 months, we're doing a very big tech update. And as a part of that tech update, we're bringing the Woodland Creator and the Woodland Manager tool together. I'm going to launch the Woodland Manager tool. And from this, I'll come to the actual tool dashboard itself. I can click on all of these pop-ups, go away. I have taken the liberty, I've done quite a lot of mapping already for the site and the plan scheme that I've come up with. There are videos and do all of these individual steps. What I'm going to focus on today is creating the UCO compliant maps rather than the mapping that would go into creating those maps. With a premium account, as I previously said, you can change the mapping backgrounds here. We have a whole host of different maps, but I'm going to choose the Ordnance Survey roads map. Interestingly, the roads has more field data than the outdoor map does. When you come onto this, you can zoom in and out, and you can go right down to master map layers and all the way back out. Again, we're working on our licensing fee with Ordnance Survey at the moment to change the cost of that. There's a little bit of a system at the moment. If I come to the edge here, so each time you have to buy tile views. It's quite complicated to explain, but you click on the tiles that you want to view, and in the left hand side here there's a cost. We're looking at getting rid of that, so hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months that whole system of being able to buy tiles when you zoom into a certain level will be gone, and you're buying to view those tiles for 24 hours. So there's a difference again in our licensing agreement between viewing and downloading. So again, we've tried to reduce the cost as much as possible for downloading. So you'll only have to pay to download OS master maps when you reach a master map layer. So that's from scales 1 to 3000 and smaller. So the greater magnifications. I'm just going to buy that. It's quite a simple process that's quite easy to do once you set up your account. Another thing to point out, we've imported quite a lot of data layers. Again, I'll show you the creation tool in a little bit. I don't think there's actually any in this that would be on this area, but they're different data layers. I can show you in the creator tool in a little bit. So I've got my OS background. I've gone through, and on this I've mapped everything that I would need as part of my UCO maps. So as part of UCO, you might have to create 5 or 6 different maps. So you might have to create a site context map, a planting design map, an access map, watercourse and open water map, and an open ground map. The PDF guidance that we've created goes through all of those maps individually. I'm just going to show you how to create your site context map today because of time's sake. In that guidance, there's a tick list of each and every component that you need within that map, how to do each and every step along the way, a step-by-step kind of screenshot by screenshot guide with text by that. So as I said, I'm just going to show you how to do a site context map, how to download it, and go from there really. So I've created 3 compartments here. I've created one, if I get rid of this, turn tags off. So I've created 3 different compartments here. So this is our site in South Oxford. So we've already got a section of existing woodland that was planted about 6 years ago now, that I've drawn individual sub-compartments for. As well as that, we've also got an orchard that's really lovely. We have bees in there. We get quite a lot of honey out of there. And then I've mapped 4 sub-compartments for the UCO map itself. This includes 3 different species mix examples and also a bit of open space. I've created 3 features. So I've created a site boundary, which covers the entire site at Silver. I've got existing fence lines for where the fence surrounds the woodland creation area, and new fence lines I'd like to put in. We've got roe deer on site and a few muntjac. So fencing would be required for our planting scheme. Should FC be kind enough, then let us go ahead with it. So to create the site context map, the first thing I'm going to do within this mapping section is click this add button underneath the mapping section. So again, it goes through this in the tick list. So for this map title, I will need to include the map title, the map number, the applicant or business name, and the applicant or business single business identifier. So my map title for this would be Wood Centre, which is our site name, site context. This shows us how many times I've done it. Site context map. We've got the applicant name, so Silver Foundation. We've got our single business identifier. So for now, I'm just going to put a string of individual numbers. And then with that as well, we've also got the map 1 of 5. So that would tick off immediately a lot of the requirements for your UCO compliant map. After I've typed that in, I'm going to click this blue create map button, and that's going to take us to a slightly different view. Again, there's videos on how to create all of these maps individually. So with the live map view, I've got this white box and everything else is grayed out. So this, when we have an A4 sheet of paper or a landscape piece of paper, this is the view that will be printed. So you can see if I was to change this to portrait, the shape of that box will change. If I change it to an A1, I suddenly get a really big map. So you can play around with this as much as you like, as long as your site is within that. So I'm going to move the box around a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the map scale in comparison to my site. So for UCO maps, you need a scale of 1 to 2,500, 1 to 5,000, or for large schemes, 1 to 10,000. So this is 1 to 10,000, so our site more than covers this. So I'm going to change this to 1 to 5,000, which should capture everything I want. It's probably still a little bit big, to be quite honest, so I could change that down to 1 to 2,500. Oh, it might not fit in there just about. So I might have to go to 1 to 5,000. Move that so it's nice and central. So now that I've got my scale sorted for where I think my site is, I've got my background set to Ordnance Survey roads, and you can see because it's a 1 to 5,000 scale, it's actually free to download this map. So that's us trying to fiddle around with our contract with Ordnance Survey as much as possible, so that you get as much free stuff from them as possible, which is great. So there's a lot of things that will automatically be generated in the map that you don't need to worry about. So these would be the map legend. So the everything that we add will be added to the legend, the map orientation, the scale bar, and then the copywriting as well. That will all be added automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So even though we've done mapping in the previous one, I like to think of this as a kind of a blank sheet of paper, and then we're going to be adding layers of cling film over the top of that with different shapes drawn on top of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a new layer here, and for simplicity, I'm just going to call this one a site boundary. So you'll need to include a site boundary as part of all of your UCO maps. So I'm going to change the fill color to white and set the opacity to 0, well, to 1, so it's translucent. I'm going to give it a red line and a weight of 3. Again, we've got videos very specifically how to do all of these individual components within creating maps. This is just a very quick demonstration to show you how I'd create a UCO compliant map. So I've created a layer. I'm going to add from list. So this brings up all of the previous stuff that I've mapped, and I'm going to click the site boundary. And hey presto, there's our site boundary on the map. So I can add that to the map and move it so it's nice and in the middle. So I'm going to continue adding layers here. So proposed, you get to see my really quick typing. Proposed planting areas, I'm just going to put a fill color of a blue, opacity to 4. This is all stuff that you can play around with. I'm doing it very quickly. I'm going to take the luxury of assuming that you have both more time and creativity with your scheme designs, and also the time you can put into creating really nice maps. So as you can see, the 3 planting compartments that I've got there have been added to the map. I'm going to add a third third layer here for open space, open ground. I'm going to give that a green color. Again, I said it was 4 last time. And this is all stuff that you can build up your competence with quite quickly. As I said, we've got all the tutorials in the world for you, and you've got my email as well. So if you're struggling, please feel free to email me and we can set up a Zoom and go through this. I've given quite a few tutorials on a one-on-one basis to people now about all of this. So as part of a site context map for UCO, I need the planned planting areas, I need the open space, I've got the site boundary, and the last thing I need is the fence lines. So as I said, I've created some features to show where the fence lines are. So I'm going to create 2 different layers here. One is for existing fence lines around the planting area. So I don't need to do this for the whole site, it's specific for the planting area. And I'm going to color that black. And I created this existing fence lines here. So we've got the black added there very nicely. And then what I'm also going to do is add a second layer for new fence lines. I'm going to give that a nice pink color and really make it stand out. And again, I'm going to go to this add from list and click this new fence lines that I've already made. So you can see there I've got a fence that goes all around the perimeter of my proposed planting, and that'll be great. So the last thing that you're going to need for your site context map is the grid reference. So you can see I've got the grid reference up here at the top. So what I'm going to do is add a new label. I'm going to create an anchor first. So I've got this label that I can move around and drag wherever I want. And then I've got this anchor point as well, which I can do the same. And I'm going to put it at the access point, or you can put it in the center of your planting area or center of your site. I'll leave it actually in the center of the site because it'll be clearer. So I've got this new label thing. I can come to edit the label. This is a little bit jinxy at the moment, so I can leave it there. As you can see, when I move my mouse around in the top right, the grid reference actually changes and updates as well. So I'm just going to hover my mouse over that anchor point so I can see that the grid reference is SU 54990 93616. So that's lovely. So I can move that, and I've got my grid reference in the middle of my map there, which is perfect. So that's everything you need for a site context map. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click this save and close button. Importantly, when you're working with your local woodland officer, they may offer up recommendations, they may offer up some changes to make. So it's really easy. You can come back in. If you click on it, you can change everything. So it's all there, ready to be changed, ready to be moved around. And this is a really, you should be collaborating and working closely with your woodland officer for this. The UCO scheme is really good. And I imagine there's a few teething problems because it's quite new and innovative. So it's quite easy to change everything as you're going. So what I'm going to do now is click on this download button. So that I'm going to get this spinning wheel for a little bit as it's generating my map. But hopefully, yep, the blue button will come up. I can click on this, and there we have my UCO compliant site context map for all of my woodland creation schemes. You can download that, you can print it. Else here again. So just a really quick thank you to all of the FC for letting us present and share how to do this. It's a fly through. If you have any questions, please do email me. My email's there. Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry again we couldn't be with you. I hope this was useful. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you to Paul and George for providing that pre-recorded demonstration for us on the myforest tool from the Silver Foundation. Unfortunately, Maps is a reoccurring problem for processing UCO applications. And myforest is one option, which we may think a useful way for applicants to access a system to help them to create the maps that we want for UCO applications. But it is worth noting that if you aren't as kind of tech savvy, you can also request paper maps to mark up from the Forestry Commission map request service as well, which we will also provide details for when we send out the materials from this webinar. Okay, so if we then briefly have around 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions you might have, I'll hand over to Annie.
Thank you, Sophie. Okay, so we move on to questions. Alec has already done a good job of answering some of your questions as we went through the slides. So I won't read out the questions that he has already answered in the chat. But if you do have any follow-up questions to the answers he's provided, please do add those into the chat as well, or raise your hand if you have anything else to add to it. So I think we'll kick off with the first question from Rupert Lane, which I believe hasn't been answered yet, but Alec, do jump in if you have answered it. Rupert's got a question about nurseries. He's mentioned that nurseries are likely to want a purchase order for large schemes. He's asked if the UCO conditions suggest that this would the conditions suggest that this would jeopardise the grant. I don't know, Alec, if you're able to answer that one.
I probably can't give an answer that you'll like, Rupert. So I think you could. It's a bit of a tricky issue that we are looking at the moment, but I think you could pre-order your planting stock. The key thing is that you're not invoiced and not paying for the material before you have a UCO agreement with us. But we know that this is a challenge, and we're trying to encourage people to plan ahead and contact nurseries. But just at the minute, that is the rule. So yes, you could pre-order and put your reserve order down. But the key thing is that you've not actually purchased the planting material before you have an agreement.
Thanks, Alec.
Thank you.
A similar question from Daniela. How can you declare communications with nurseries regarding stock if the tree planting will be supplied and completed by a contractor?
Good question, Daniela. I think at the moment our forms, what we're trying to do is make sure there's that early engagement with the nursery, so that I guess it works both ways. So we're trying to support the nursery sector in terms of forward planning, so they can understand what the likely demand is, and then equally we want our applicants to be as confident as they can be that when they come to plant, the trees will be available for them. So that's sort of the purpose of what we're looking at the moment through our application form. So I think as long as there's some way that you can show us that there's been a degree of engagement, and be that if that's with a contractor and they're going to supply the stock, I guess that's what we're after at the moment. So I think, yeah, there's a little bit of flexibility in how you approach that for the present time. Again, though, looking at how we might need to firm that up to support biosecurity requirements. So that's a useful bit of feedback for us to take away, Daniela. But I think as long as you can, in your application, indicate how you're going to source the trees, and you've done some prior engagement on that, that's the key thing.
Alec. The next question is from Cassie, who's acting as a free advisor to UCO applicants. They've asked, if I were to help with filling out an application, would I be required to register as an agent and fill out the agent authority form? I wouldn't be receiving funding through this as my role is separately funded.
Yeah, so I think, Cassie, it just depends on, you probably just need to have a look at that form and see if you're going to be doing any of the actions that form empowers you to do or empowers an agent to do. So if you're sort of in the background just helping to fill out the form, and then your client is going to submit it, make the claims, sign the agreement, and if in effect sort of be our point of contact, then you don't need to do that form. But if you're going to act as an agent in terms of helping move that application through the process, you know, submitting it, possibly signing it on behalf of the client, then you will need to fill that form out. So I guess it's like if you're going to be quite formal, you know, do those specific tasks where you're sort of acting on behalf of your client, then you need to do that form. If you're just sort of, if you like, more in the background helping them, then that's not needed. But do check the form, and then you'll see the permissions that it would give you to see if you need to fill that out.
Thank you. The next question is from Richard. Richard's asked, can land that is coming out of basic payments, early retirement from funding, be eligible?
Just reading your comment, Richard. And I think I might just have to take that one away. I think in principle there are some special arrangements for woodland, new woodland planting under BPS, and the transitional arrangements for phasing out BPS. But I'd probably just want to make sure I double check that before I gave any advice on that. So maybe that's something we can look to confirm in a follow-up to the webinar through any alert or something. But I just want to be crystal clear on my facts before I answered that. Apologies.
Thanks, Alec. Leston has a question. Can you clarify the new announcement that nurseries must be either accredited under the Plant Healthy certification scheme or passed a ready to plant assessment as provided by Fairer Science Limited?
A very good question. I can't give you too much detail on that. The final details are being worked up, but I guess it touches on the point before that Daniela had raised about checking with nurseries. So basically the driver here is we want to make sure and support biosecure planting stock through UCO payments. And there'll be two routes to do that. If you're sourcing stock, I guess the simplest way will be to source your stock from a Plant Healthy certified nursery. And if that's not possible, then there'll be this sort of ready to plant assessment, and the details of quite how that will work are just being finalised. But it is likely that later in the year, those requirements also be reflected in our application forms. So we'll need to sort of tighten up a little bit on asking applicants to confirm which nurseries they're using to source the material, so we understand whether the Plant Healthy certification scheme applies or it will need a ready to plant assessment. But yeah, just the final details of that are coming together. So that feedback from Daniela, that's quite helpful in understanding how we might make that work where people are dealing with contractors. I would say as well that approach, it is a pilot, so we'll be doing some learning from that. But yeah, sorry, I can't be a bit more clear on that, but more news on that to come soon.
Thank you. Follow-up question from Kate at Trees for Cities. If you plant in separate blocks, how local do they need to be to make up 1 hectare? For example, could we include 0.2 hectares in London and 0.8 hectares in Bradford?
We'll be probably want to have a chat with a woodland officer or woodland creation officer about Kate, but I guess we'd be sort of looking for those blocks to be within sort of the same holding or landscape unit. I think putting one in West Yorkshire and one in London wouldn't quite fit. So we'd be sort of looking for a sensible sort of proximity for those blocks, so they're, as I say, sort of in the same landscape. We've sort of used in the past sort of water catchments as a guide for that, but I think it's probably one to have a chat with a woodland officer or woodland creation officer about, just to see how far we can go. I guess for us, you know, we need to have, they need to sort of fit together sensibly so we can put them through our process and our environmental impact assessment process, which is where we have to consider the impacts of creating the woodland. So it's a bit like planning control for woodlands, that process. So obviously we need them in a sort of sensible proximity to one another to make sure we can manage that process sensibly. So yeah, sort of same land holding, same catchment. So I would try and think about it in those sorts of lines rather than within the same country, if that makes sense.
Thanks. And then the final question from Alex: would you accept maps prepared on the Land app platform?
I will have to check, Alex. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with that platform. So we'll take that as an action to check that would meet our minimum requirements. If it would, then that will be acceptable.
Great. Thank you, Alec. We've come to the end of the questions in the chat, and there's only a minute left of the meeting. So I don't know if there were any final questions that people had, or Sophie, Alec, if there's anything that you wanted to end on.
No, I don't think so. Hopefully that's been useful. Thanks, Sophie, for pulling this together and taking us through it, and Annie for chairing. Thanks for you all attending. I think Annie, you shared the UCO inquiries line. So if you've got any further questions, do drop us a line there. If you've any feedback on how this webinar went, and if you'd find webinars on other topics useful, please drop us a message, and we can look at lining those up. I think that's probably it from us. Thanks very much all, and we'll look to put the recording of this out through the e-alert and follow up on any questions that I haven't answered in the chat.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Take care. Bye for now.